Hare Krishna. Arjun had asked a question to Krishna that Krishna, the living entity is your part and parcel. And being your part, he is also all pure and full of knowledge. Then what impels him to do all kinds of sinful activities, sometimes unwillingly and sometimes without any hesitations? Krishna answered Arjun in the previous verse, and he said that it is lust which is born out of the mode of passion or rajogur, and it gets transformed into anger if it is not fulfilled. Then further Krishna explained the various stages of lust which covers the pure consciousness of the living entity. In case you have missed out watching the previous videos, then please do watch them as it will help you to understand today's shloka in a better manner. Now let's first recite today's shloka, that is shlok number 39 of Karma Yoga. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavarina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena analena cha. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavarina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena analena cha. Avritam, covered. Jnanam, pure consciousness. Etena, by this. Jnanina, of the knower. Nitya Varina, eternal enemy. Kamrupena, in the form of lust. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Dushpurena, never to be satisfied. Analen, by the fire. Cha, also. Translation. Krishna is saying, thus the man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never to be satisfied and which burns like fire. Krishna says, Gyan metena avritam jnanino nitya varina kam rupena kaunteya. The pure consciousness is covered by the eternal enemy in the form of lust. Then Krishna further says, Dushpuren analenacha. Dushpuren means it will never be satisfied, and analena means it will continuously burn like fire. Now let us read the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada says that it is said in the Manu Smriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In this material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Maithunya Agar, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, we can see that criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Prabhupada further says that advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within this material world. And further, Prabhupada says that while one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually this so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Prabhupada very clearly says that there may be some feeling of sense of happiness, but this feeling of happiness is actually the enemy. Because of it, the enjoyer never gets close to Krishna consciousness or self-realization. Now let us understand it one by one. Prabhupada in the very first line of his purport says that in the Manusmriti it is said that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. Now for us, it's not very difficult to understand that if we keep on adding ghee to the fire, maybe even a little amount, a little quantity, but by adding ghee, the fire is never extinguished. Similarly, a person's want for sense enjoyment is never fulfilled. The more one works to fulfill the desires, the more it demands. Prabhupada says that this sense enjoyment is like the bars or shackles of the prison. In this material world, a criminal is put behind the bars and he is locked inside when he does not abide by the rules made by the government. He gets food to eat, clothes to wear, but does not have his independence to move out of the jail. In the same way, the criminals who are disobedient to the rules of the Supreme Lord are shackled in the sense enjoyment or sex life in this material world and are trapped in the endless cycle of birth, old age, disease and death. Now we may think that this is common to all and everyone has to go through birth, old age, disease and death. Prabhupada explains that we are not this body. We are spirit souls, which is a part of the Supreme Krishna, and we are meant to be eternally enjoying with Krishna. But because we have misused our little independence and have disobeyed the rules of the Supreme Lord, that is why we are subjected to the punishment of endless cycle of birth, old age, disease and death. We are trapped in this material jail the way the criminals are trapped in jail. Prabhupada says that we have got our sense organs and working organs from the 5 elements of the material nature. And the material nature is the external power of Krishna. When we have got the sense organs and working organs from the Supreme Krishna, then actually it should be employed in the service of the Lord. But when we don't want to employ our sense organs in the service of the Lord, instead we wish to do sense enjoyment, then we become criminals and are put in the jail of this material world, where we are subjected to the continuous process of birth, old age, disease and death. If we intelligently think a little, then we will realize that birth, old age, disease and death is no fun. Rather, it is so very painful. But the irony is this, that a person's intelligence is covered by lust, and the little temporary enjoyment that a person experiences while doing sense enjoyment or sex, that is his greatest enemy, does not allow the person to come out of the desires of sense enjoyment and takes him far, far away from God realization and self-realization. This particular shloka is very important for each one of us. We need to deeply think and understand that the most valuable and rare human life is only meant for self realization and not for sense enjoyment. And once we lose this rare human life for merely sense enjoyment, then we will get the next human body after 84 lakhs of species, which is such a big loss. Prabhupada says that the material advancement is a great impediment in the path of spiritual advancement. The more materially we become comfortable, we get far and far from self realization. Now, I am very confident that all of us will give a sincere thought to it that we are not this material body, we are spirit souls encaged in this material body. This is the first step in spiritual journey, which can be done only in this human form of life. And in the previous shloka, we have understood very nicely that the smoke which covers the fire is the most shallow covering, and by little careful handling, the fire can be set to blaze again brilliantly. And this analogy was given for the human form of life, in which Krishna consciousness or God realization is possible only by little effort. And that little effort is that we need to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and listen to the Bhagwat Gita shlokas and put it into practice, because Bhagwat Gita is a spiritual science. I thank each one of you to be listening to Bhagavad Gita shlokas so attentively. And I thank Srila Prabhupada for explaining to us the most secretive knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in such simple manner. And in the next verse, Krishna is going to reveal to us the address of this eternal enemy lust. Please stay connected to listen to Krishna and always chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra and be happy. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnavon ki jai. Hare Krishna.